Hey, we are live. Hi, everybody. It's me, Jason from Six Colors, and across the internet from me is.
It's me, Dan, also from Six Colors, just in case you weren't sure.
All right. Now, I don't know. Are you a little, I don't know. Yeah, technical things happen. It's fine. We'll work it out.
Okay.
You're a little off sync there. That's weird.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why that is. Can I change
I
the
thought you
password?
were in
No.
sync, but now you are not in sync, which is peculiar.
That is peculiar. I wonder if, hold on, I'm going to test one thing here.
Okay. I can't
All right.
wait to see.
If I stop my audio hijack session, am I still out of sync?
Are you doing that now?
I just did it. Did it make
Mm,
any difference or no?
maybe a
Okay.
little. I don't know.
Mm,
Still not
all
great.
right. Then let me try one more thing. I'm going to pop out and pop back.
Oh, he popped out. Wow. What will happen next? This is great stuff, everybody. Great stuff. We could switch to Zoom if we need to. Need to. Oop, where is Dan? Hmm. Let's see. Dan is joining.
This,
Dan has
okay.
returned.
Is that any better? Any
Yeah,
different?
you're completely in sync now.
Okay. I switched to Chrome. I was in Safari. Safari doesn't like
That was
video
your
chat.
problem. That was your problem
That'll
right
do it
there.
every time.
Yeah,
All right. Let me hit record again here.
good stuff.
Turn off my Zoom blocks and audio hijack so it doesn't try to launch Zoom.
Mm-hmm. We could have used Zoom. I just thought we would use this instead.
All right. Everything's on.
Okay, you're all synced now too.
Let's do it.
Now, yeah, we can go live on YouTube now. Oh, wait a second. We already did that.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Well, that was 2 minutes of technical difficulties. It's pretty much par for the course. Hey, everybody. It's me, Jason. And across the internet from me, it's him, Dan. Hi,
It's
Dan.
me, Dan. Hi, Jason. It's good
What
to
happened
see
today?
you.
Did Apple set a record again?
Probably. At least one, maybe
Mm,
more.
revenue record.
Um,
Revenue record, I am told by
yeah.
those in the know.
You know what? It is an interesting time, and it's an interesting moment for them too, because they set some records. They did some stuff. I felt like I noticed, just sort of big picture. I felt like I noticed more. I'm trying to think how to politely say this. Massaging of the way stuff was um, discussed than sometimes it is in the past. For example, there was a thing where they said the iPhone was basically flat. iPhone revenue was basically flat. That
Down
is not
1%.
what's that?
It's down
Yeah,
1%. So,
yeah, I guess so. But then they later on were like, "Oh, wearables were down 2%." It's like, well, what's basically flat then at that point, right? Like,
it's
and
all
somebody else referred to iPhone
basically.
revenue being down, and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it is."
Well,
So,
they the way I look at it is they did let us now turn to results from the quarter, starting with the iPhone. They do not mention the iPhone's comparison to the year ago quarter. For all
mm,
the ones that are up, they do, and all the ones that are down, they just don't. They just don't
yep.
mention it because it's Apple. It is PR. It is investor relations. So I guess it's IR, but it's still PR in a way. So yeah, that's what it is. So they soft pedaled that. I would say whenever things are that close, like a 1%,
It's
I think they put in some number about how it was in the ballpark of being up, fluctuations, currency, whatever. Like there's lots of
almost.
things that they can do to
If
wave
you
their
ignore it
hands.
being slightly down, it was basically up.
Yeah,
If you can just
but
imagine that.
they're just trying to spin it is the way I
Right.
guess I would put it.
I think that was what it was for me. Is I listening this time, I felt more of the spin. I saw more of the spin. I think with a lot of the comments, and we'll get into it. But yeah, it felt a little bit more like, yeah, this was a fine quarter, but the things that might have been weaknesses were more like, oh well, You think that's a weakness, but it's not really a weakness, and let's tell you why.
Yeah, we consider that a sort of a negative strength.
Yeah.
Also, by popular demand, let's see if I can play this and this actually comes through. Oh,
Not on my end.
I don't hear it either.
Maybe
I
someone out there is
hope
enjoying
the
it.
people who heard it enjoyed it because. Oh no, here it is. Okay, I got it now. This is gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Money, 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 who has all the money? Money, 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 who has all the money? Money, 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 who has all the money? It's Apple.
Still Apple. There we go. All right.
Thanks, Lex.
Hope everybody enjoyed the Lex jingle of the money song.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are details, and we're going to get into the details, and we're going to show you a bunch of charts. But at the top line, this is a record fiscal quarter. This morning, Lauren said to me, "What's Apple going to do this time?" And I said, "They're going to break a record. That's what I think. I think they're going to break a record because although it wasn't last year, I had to update my story. It was actually 3 years ago, I think that they set the record, but it doesn't matter. It's blown past now. 124.3 billion with a B dollars, up 4% year over year. And I think it's very impressive given that the iPhone is more than half of their revenue, that the iPhone down 1%, they still set a record because everything else actually, other than wearables, home and accessories, we'll get to it, did really well.
Yeah.
Should we look at some charts and just
look at some
instead
charts.
of speaking in the abstract, what if we actually
cold
into
hard
detail?
numbers?
All right. Whoop. There we go.
Mm.
Presenting charts. This is the total Apple revenue chart, of which I was just speaking. So 124.3 billion in revenue. You can see they've been basically flat. By which I mean basically flat and not down, which is another, of course, meaning of basically flat for a while now. But, so interesting that we went from that record 123.9 in what was essentially the holiday quarter of 2021, the fiscal 22 Q1.
Height of the pandemic.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, a little bit after, but yeah, 123.9 billion for that holiday quarter. Then they went down to 117.2. Then they went back up a little bit to 119.6, up year over year, but not a record. And then here they've regained their record by just a little teeny tiny bit. But what I always say on these is
I like that we say a little tiny bit, meaning $400 million.
I'll take that tiny bit. I'll take it. But
peel a little of that off for us.
But again, the thing that I am always impressed by, I know that a lot of the Wall Street types especially are like, well, but it didn't grow. But like, I am impressed that they maintain. They do this a lot, where Apple takes these leaps, and what they don't do in a lot of times is they don't come off of it. They sort of like put that at the new level, and then they kind of churn there for a while. And maybe it doesn't go on forever, but that's where they've been a lot, is that they make gains and then they maintain the gains, which is pretty impressive, I think.
Right.
It's a lot of money.
Speaking
of lots of money, here's the profit, total Apple profit number. Also a record.
Yeah, a bit more there.
$36.3 billion.
A little bit more revenue and a decent hunk of more profit there.
Yeah. Interesting that that you can see the trends that are similar to the revenue numbers for the holiday quarters, but the numbers are just a little bit different. It's just a little bit of a different setup here, but same idea that there was a record 34.6 back in fiscal 122, and here they've beaten it again. They're very profitable, lots of high margin stuff, especially in services, which we'll get to.
Yeah, profit. It's good for them.
Okay, I mean, yeah, it's good for them. We don't get it.
There's not a lot to say. I mean, it's always impressive, right? I mean, like, and we know what's kind of generating the bulk of this, because we'll talk about gross margin in a few minutes. But yeah, I think it's one of those cases where if you think too much about the amount of profit they make, it quickly becomes just an exercise in absurdity. $36 billion in pure profit. billion.
in a single quarter.
That's
a
just
single
it's hard
quarter.
to. I don't think most of us can even quantify in our
No.
heads that's it's just too much.
No. Petrus wrote in and said, "Do they ever talk in the investor calls about how changes in manufacturing processes save the bottom line so that they can increase their profit?" They don't talk about that except obliquely when they talk
Yeah.
about new products. Generally, what they do is they talk about new products lowering margin.
Right.
The
'Cause
implication
of the
there, of course, is that
curve, yeah.
the older products are gaining margin, and that's what happens over time. It's a very important thing to know if you do not know it, that the longer a product is on production, the cheaper it is to make. And so if the Apple holds the line on price, which sometimes they do cut them as they get older. But the margins just keep expanding because the parts get cheaper and they've amortized their setup costs, and just over time it gets cheaper and cheaper. Like, I don't know how many studio displays they're selling now, but I would wager that they're making way more money on them because they haven't changed the price at all.
Yeah. It is also staggering to look at that. You just catch the tail of it on your graph there, but that Q4 2020 number, right? This is triple that, basically. Almost. A little under, but just about triple that Q4 2020 number. And it is amazing how much of a jump has happened with a few exceptions. The last quarter was down a little bit. It's a Q4, but yeah, it is a bit. The last few years have been a staggering growth in profit.
Shout out to Mike Hurley, who is apparently watching, my co-host on Upgrade. That's where the theme song came from, and we will be talking about these charts, of course, on Upgrade as well. Maybe we'll play that song. I hope so. How can we not? Year-over-year total revenue change. This is, I think, the thing that the analysts are most concerned by, honestly, is growth. Viewing the world. If you see all those great green bars that we had before, that's what happens if you view the world through money. If you view the world through a derivative of money, which is change in the amount of money, which is the sad lot of Wall Street analysts and investors, this is what you see instead, which is there was a period of really great growth. And then my whole thing about, hey, Apple maintains, yes, they do. But like, again, from a growth perspective, what have you done for me lately is basically
right.
What they're saying.
And it is also one of those things that, as we discussed, and it's discussed in the past, that Wall Street angle is kind of unsustainable. I mean, you look at what was driving the growth in those quarters at that time, and the answer is a lot of it was COVID.
Yeah.
Because that is why people bought so much more stuff.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, why can't you repeat that number? And it's like, because we're not causing another pandemic just to sell more computers.
Don't tell anybody.
Yes.
Don't give anybody any ideas. 2020 is starting to scroll off of our charts now, which is kind of funny because it was such an important moment for everybody, including Apple.
Pretty soon we'll be into the 2023 numbers, and I think it'll be, you can change your scale axis back.
David Schaub comments about the factory that's been pumping out the 5K 27-inch panels that are used in the iMac and the Studio Display and a bunch of other things. Like, yeah, imagine the margins LG is making on those panels. I think they're LG. Yeah, nice. Okay, pie chart, my one singular pie chart, which is just a reminder, and I've got another visualization coming up about it, but just a reminder, 56% of Apple revenue this quarter, iPhone. It's a very important category. Also, services. Getting close to a quarter of Apple's revenue from services now.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about the services margin in a little bit, but it's a profit margin on that 21%. It's 75% profit margin.
I do got to laugh a little bit about wearables being a business in this quarter slightly larger than both the Mac and the iPad.
Yeah.
Partly in virtue of the fact that it's the smorgasbord category, right?
It is.
It's like wearables.
It literally used to be called miscellaneous income,
other,
I think. Yeah. Other. Other. Yeah, I think it was other.
It was other
Not
for a long
category.
time. It was like
It's
the
about
Apple
other.
TV, basically.
Can you give me more color
for
about your other strategy? No.
Yeah.
But wearables, home, and accessories we can do. So
Just
this
a
is
bin
why
where we throw our iPod socks.
This is why all those reports, Mark Gurman talking about them getting, building more home products. This is why. Is because we'll see it in a minute. But wearables is a bigger category for them now, but it's really stalled out. So they're trying to goose it. Here's the other version of that pie chart that's like over time, which is just showing you the size of the iPhone, which obviously in holiday quarter it's going to take a bigger piece of the pie out, but you can see how important services is to the overall Apple revenue, and then you've got the little at the bottom of the parfait, you got the
I
wearables,
always
the
enjoy
Mac, and
this
the iPad
this chart, Jason, because it evokes in me a memory of that classic Mac OS about dialog box.
with the
Remember
mountains.
with the mountains, because you look at it the right way, and it's like it's the blue sky, it's the purple mountains, or
Purple
in like kind
mountains.
of a sunlight, and
Yeah, then some
yeah,
foothills and
it's very
coastal
soothing.
range. Yeah, and then at the bottom is the ocean or
Yeah,
something. Let's talk about the Mac. Mac revenue. So
had a
the Mac,
good quarter for the Mac.
it's a good quarter for the Mac. It is driven by what? Mac Mini.
The M4, yeah,
So the
M4,
M4
Mac
stuff.
Mini,
Mac
and
Mini, MacBook
Mac
Pro.
Pro, yeah.
Not coming. They're coming down from those highs again. I would say COVID plus Apple Silicon transitional highs that were the best the Mac has ever done. And $9 billion in a quarter for the Mac, pretty good. And they will say Mac installed base is the biggest it's ever been. That's a very squishy number, but they will make that claim that there are more active use Macs right now than ever because they get people who are
Jason,
new.
it's our best installed base ever.
Best installed base ever. It's it was up. It wasn't flat though. It was up. But so down from the 11.5 and the 10.9, right? Like they have these other just kind of wild years there in 20 and 21 and into 22.
Again,
But
it's kind of almost scrolled
still.
off, but you look back there at that 2020, early 2020 numbers, and like it was about a $5-ish billion business in a quarter. A little better sometimes, a little worse sometimes, but now it's it's in the 7, 8, 9 range pretty
Apple
regularly
Silicon
still.
rolls in and they're in the 7s, basically, and this quarter all the way up at 9.
Yeah, so good category there. Great drive. I mean, people never ask about the questions I want to know, which is like I would be asking about like the breakdowns of the Mac lines. Nobody cares except for us. But I'd be like, okay, was the Mini driving that? Was it the MacBook Pro? Like, tell me a little bit more about. Nobody wants to talk about the Mac.
I know, but we do. That's what's important. We do. Here's the
There you
year-over-year
go.
revenue
There's
change for
16.
the Mac.
Love it.
I color code okay. I hope you all have noticed this, but like I picked colors from out of the Apple rainbow for each of the product categories. So the Mac is the green, which is number one.
It's my favorite color too. So
number one is the green. 16% up. Good. There were a bunch of flats, 4 quarters of relatively flat. But this quarter, a big boost again. It's really the biggest Mac growth that we've seen in ages. And I think the Mac Mini definitely drove some sales, although I'm not sure how huge that was in terms of revenue. But the MacBook Pro,
I
think,
assume. Yeah.
did.
People love it. Yeah,
It's a
that's
really
good. I
good
like
Mac
to again. Love to see the Mac doing well. They had a little bit of a tough compare in the last year. But this year, they get the benefit from that tough compare.
That's what happens.
That's how it goes.
Inflationary growth followed by flat is it looks like this on a revenue graph, which is down.
You got to go down to go up.
Yeah. iPad, the orange, or is it yellow? Yellow, I guess.
This is a yellow, yeah.
It's a yellow, not an orange.
I was going to say, they better not add any more. They add any more product lines. I think you got one color left.
I do. I have one color left. It's true. iPad revenue, good iPad quarter after good iPad year, because it turns out if you release iPads, they do well. Tim Cook, here was a little detail.
Yeah.
They don't give away. Did you notice this too? They don't give away per product within category details at all. But when somebody was like, "Oh, tell me about that thin M4 iPad Pro," that was probably a big part of this, right? And Tim Cook was like, "No, actually, it was the iPad Air in the base model,
in the entry." And they mentioned the Mini earlier at the beginning too, which I thought was interesting too. But so it's basically everything but the Pro is driving sales there, which honestly makes sense. Those Pros are so good, and they keep revising them. But they're expensive, and
so expensive.
They just don't turn over. If you have one,
you don't replace. You keep it a long time, and two, I think they have defined the iPad Air. Like the iPad Air exists so people don't have to get forced all the way up to that iPad Pro, and as a result, I mean, this is as Apple intended it.
And And as we've talked about plenty
Essentially.
of times in the past, the Pro is overpowered, like for a lot of what people are doing.
It
Most
is.
people totally fine with an entry level or an Air. Those are
Yep.
good products, and that's where the iPad is right now.
Yeah. Another view of this that shows that 15% year over year revenue change, really nice, especially for a holiday season, and also 3 successive quarters of iPad growth after that year where they didn't release any new iPads. Because if you want your revenue to grow, one way you can do that is by releasing new versions of your products. It turns out it helps. So a good year for the iPad after a very vacant year for the iPad. A lot of those Apple report card coming out next week. And yeah, people are happy about the iPad because the iPad had a year when the previous year it had nothing. There was nothing that happened there. What else do we have? Hey, profit. I'll throw this in here before we go on to the iPhone. Basically, this is a newish chart where I look at the total profit based on the profit margin number. And just to give, this is the thing that I created, just sort of give you a rough sense of how does services revenue compare to product revenue overall in terms of its contribution to the profit number at Apple. And this is because I wrote that piece last year about how one of these quarters, Apple's going to make more profit on services than on the products it sells. You can see it's coming, but not on a holiday quarter. That's not when it's going to happen.
I like this one too because it makes me think of Jaws. It's like the start, sure. And the services are getting closer. They're just underneath the waves there.
Too. It could be mountains, but
I'm
it's
going
more two-dimensional.
Going with Jaws in that one.
All right, iPhone time. 69.1 billion down. I mean, Apple can say it. Apple can say
basically flat.
Basically flat, by which we mean that we sold $600 million less in iPhones than we did the year ago quarter. That's what they mean when they say basically flat. It was in millions and not billions. So, I mean, basically nothing.
This is a place where I'm going to raise an eyebrow. And I said this to you, but I still think there's something, again, some spin happening here, which was Tim kept pointing out everything was great in the regions with Apple Intelligence. That's where we saw the ups. And then the regions that didn't have it weren't doing as well. And this may be true, but best you can give that as a correlation. It's not necessarily a causative effect. B, the major region that was down for them was China, which I don't think is a result
there's
of
no Apple Intelligence.
All. There is no Apple Intelligence, but I don't think it's driving them not buying. It's down so much. It's not like that many millions of people were like, no, it doesn't have Apple Intelligence. I'm not in.
No, they're playing with the numbers there, right? Which is that their numbers are more favorable in the English-speaking countries that they rolled out Apple Intelligence in, and therefore they can kind of point there.
Even there, those didn't roll out until December. It was like mid-December, and the end of the quarter is the end of December. I don't think in those last 2 weeks of the quarter, everybody's like, oh, Apple Intelligence is finally here. I'm going to go get it in Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa, Australia.
If I had a big button, I do actually. I was going to say, well, it's not going to show it on the thing. I was going to say if I've got the confetti drop button, I'd press it. You got him. You got him.
That's right. Finally. Mission accomplished. Roll down the banner. This is where, do I have my, can I do my reactions? Yeah, there we go. Here we go. Confetti. I got him, Jason.
You got him. Good job.
Thanks. Anyways, I don't know. It's because Tim wanted to talk about Apple Intelligence a whole lot. There was a lot of Apple Intelligence talk, and I'm sure he'd love to say it's great, and he'd like to say how everybody's using all those tools. I think people love all of those tools. I think they use them all.
That was a real non-answer where I was hoping that they would actually say something about what Tim's favorite Apple Intelligence feature is.
All his children.
Because implied there, I mean, I think from the question is, hey, this is a big bunch of stuff you've splattered against the wall. What's sticking? And Tim said, everybody loves everything. All right. Okay. In fact, he failed to mention cleanup, and then he was like, and also cleanup. I didn't mention cleanup. It's like, oh, you got a bulleted list, don't you?
Yeah. Somebody asked him about that upgraded Siri, like when that coming and being sort of the killer app, and he's like, well, I think they're all different killer features for different people. And I was like, really, couldn't even give some love to Siri getting upgraded.
They did though say, oh, just wait. Siri's going to get better soon, which is their reference to a thing that they haven't shipped yet, right? Which is better Siri recognition with access to personal context and app intents. So, even now they're like, that feature we introduced in June that still hasn't shipped. Stay tuned.
Yeah. So again, spin is happening here. They want to talk up Apple Intelligence, and that's what they're going to do.
Yeah. iPhone year over year. Hey, guess what, Dan? They can soft pedal it all they like. That bar is going down, not up.
Mm-hmm.
Down 1%.
Right.
Barely not up. Mostly
counts though.
Barely almost up. Services. Let's move on to the purple of services.
That number just keeps going up, with maybe one exception, two exceptions there. Exceptions there back in number. They fire bad.
They have really optimized for services growth.
Well, this is the place where we talk about margin a little bit too, right? Like
75%.
Service margin is huge, right? This is all profit for them, basically.
Yeah, that was actually a really good. So shout out to Kevin Parrick, the new CFO, who was on the call. The only thing I really noticed there is, one, doesn't speak with a charming Italian accent, and two,
it does make my note taking a little easier.
And he does, a lot, which is, it's fine, So, but shout out to Kevin, because he said something that I thought was not surprising, but good to say, which is, look, the services number is a composite of lots of different things with different margins. And so the mix, like the margin on Apple Care and the margin on Apple TV Plus and the margin on Fitness Plus and the margin on News Plus, like the margins are all different. And so the mix changes, but it averages out to 75 this quarter. And I think I internally, I wonder, is there a target margin for all of Apple services, or each of them have their own target profit margin that they're shooting for and they're okay with it being a little different? I wonder. I haven't seen a lot of reporting about that. But the end result is that literally, they take in $26.3 billion and just, writing this out here, that cost them $6.575 billion to make. And the rest of it is just profit.
It's just money. It's just money.
Step 3. That's step 3 right there, Dan. Profit.
I don't remember what step 2 was, but the step 3 they got down.
All right. Here's the revenue change slide, which is also, I would say, very impressive. This is obviously not a seasonal business. They're not selling products. They auto-renew subscriptions. But still,
over 1 billion of them. Dude.
Back in the double digits, over 1 billion subscriptions, and back in the double digits for 6 straight quarters of growth out of this category. When it looked like they slowed down for a little while in terms of growth, and their growth is kicking back up.
Yeah, and as you pointed out with that one, that chart before, comparing the product and services total profit, and as you said, it's not seasonal, right? Like, it is interesting because you could look at something like the product category and think to yourself, like, okay, Apple spent most of its life making Macs, making iPods, making iPhones. You're like, this is just the way business works. It goes up and down, right? It's seasonal. Yeah. It goes up and down. And then they say, like, what if we invented a business that just went up? And you're like, wow, that would be good. We should do that. And they did.
Yeah. It's very smart. Oh, I have another money slide that I didn't move up.
Oh, there's our gross margin.
Speaking of profit margins, this is the gross margin. So it's everything together. But their gross margin, look at this. 2020 Q2, their gross margin was 38.4%. And now it's 46.9%. This is the category, by the way, which is a record, at least in recent memory. This is the category where a few quarters ago, an analyst said, I noticed your profit margin seems to be at a record level now. And Luca, Apple's former CFO, said, oh, I'm so glad you noticed that. And it was like a moment of genuine CFO's dream, which is, did you notice that we took our 38% profit margin and have gradually cranked the margins up higher and higher until now we're making 47% profit margins instead? This is substantial. Like, this is a big intentional deal where Apple is increasing margins and growth of 75% margin services drives a lot of this, but it's still very impressive.
You have to think about what it takes to move the needle even a couple percentage points. And then like it doesn't seem a lot if you just sort of think about it in the like, oh, it's 6 numbers higher, right? But like as an overall percentage of profits, that is substantive. It is a lot to move the needle.
Yeah.
Almost 10%. Getting close. I would not be surprised if they managed to crack a, 48 or something here in the next few years.
But
and that's something.
Let me look here. I mean, like if we look at Apple, so I have a product margin in my spreadsheet. I have a product margin going back a while here. And like in 2020, 2021, the product margin was 36, 35, 36, 36. And now it's more like 36, 36, 39, 39, 35, 36. So like I feel like they've increased their sort of like standard product margin a little bit. And then they've actually been increasing their services margin. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Services margins were more in the around 70, and now they're more around 75.
Because again, there must have been a lot more cost when they started spinning these services up.
Right.
And now they've been running for a while, and the cost is lower because they don't need to spend the time doing as much R&D, doing as much overhead.
Yeah. They built that fitness studio, and now they're just churning it out.
Right, exactly.
And
it's basically bandwidth. It's like the cost.
Well, I was going to say it's the Ben Thompson. Ben Thompson would say the cost to make an Apple Fitness show is not zero, or an Apple TV show is not zero at all, right? It's not. Those things are very expensive. But what Ben would point out is every additional MacBook Pro that goes out the door, there is the $800 it costs for Apple to make it, and the $1,400 that they sell it for. Every additional subscriber watching a fitness show or an Apple TV Plus show or whatever, it's just profit. It's just extra money. It just piles on. There's the initial cost, but then every incremental subscriber as they grow over 1 billion subscribers to various things is just money. It's just money. That's why they call it money. That's a reference.
Everybody needs money. Yep.
Yeah,
got it.
That's why they call it money. Is that what, Hudson Hawk? Is that what that's?
No, that's Heist. It's a David Mamet.
It's Heist. It's different. Okay, that's better. It's David Mamet. Did not write Hudson Hawk, did he?
David Mamet did not write Hudson Hawk. I would have. I love that movie. That's like 2 of my favorite things.
David Mamet and Sam Shepard collaborated on Hudson Hawk, I'd like to say, with Harold Pinter throwing in a rewrite. All right, wearable home accessories. This is the problem category. This is why Mark Gurman's writing about them doing after 10 years of disinterest, which I wrote about this week on Macworld and linked here from 6 Colors. 10 years of kind of like all of us who are interested in home tech saying, come on, Apple, pay attention. And Apple very much saying, no, maybe a HomePod. Okay, here's your HomePod. They're suddenly gearing up to do all this stuff. And like, I don't know what stopped them from doing it 10 years ago, but I can tell you, I'm going to move on to the next chart here. I'm going to tell you why they're doing it. This is why they're doing it. This is why the new focus on other products in the home, wearables, home and accessories category is growth has stopped in this category. Growth has stopped. It was doing well with Apple Watch. It was doing well with AirPods. There will be new AirPods Pro. They will do something, but there were new AirPods in this quarter and it was still down. So like, I feel like, again, not that this isn't it's a bigger business than the Mac or the iPad, right? Those are both 7 and this is like a $9 billion business, 11 this quarter, but, or like 7% versus 9%. That's what those numbers were. But growth has abandoned this category. And so I think that Apple started to say, okay, how do we grow? And it's not, Vision Pros are not going to grow this category for a very long time, but some cool, fun home products might. It's worth a shot. So that's, I think, what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I think, like you said, there's an opportunity here in the way there isn't for a lot of the other categories, which are a little more mature. This is also, as we said, it's the miscellaneous category. There's so many things that can be thrown in here. It's hard to figure
Other
out sometimes what the drivers are, because you got your Apple TVs, you got your AirPods, you got your
Apple
HomePods, you got your
Watch.
Vision Pro, Apple Watch, right? All these things are in there, and like they all have kind of different curves on them,
My
but they're
my guess
you
is
know
Apple Watch is the main driver and AirPods is the
probably
secondary driver, but we don't know.
yeah. It's HomePod Minis. It's all HomePod Minis.
Here's the regions. Interesting. So America's doing okay. Europe, Middle East, Africa, nice growth curve.
Mhm.
China has been trending flat to down for a little while now. That's a tough market. It's a tough market to be in. Even if you make lots of customization, which Apple tends to do, which is why I would not be surprised at all if in the next 6 months they announce, and there was a report about this, AI partner with China approved AI engines for Apple to use instead of like ChatGPT. And maybe Apple will get certification for its own LLM as well. But like, it's a tough market for Apple to compete in because there's also just a lot of really successful phone makers in China customizing Android and selling straight to the Chinese market, and they know what they like because they're in the country. Apple's success in China is actually kind of remarkable given all of that, but still, it is a tough region to be in. And then you can see rest of Asia Pacific, which is, if they got called out a bunch on the call today, is doing pretty well. And then Japan gets its own little category, and Japan's doing pretty well too for them. Smaller markets,
Yeah,
obviously.
they're both up. Everything was up except China. And China had a pretty big ding on the downside. But
Yep.
like they said, there's a lot of stuff happening there on a macroeconomic level too. And I think there's a lot of things they're struggling with there. But
And here's my region chart, which more clearly shows the growth. And so you can see that Europe and Americas continue to grow. Europe is actually growing the last few quarters at a pace above that of the Americas category, which is interesting. Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and they said they've had some success in Middle East, and believe it or not, India's in this category too. So there are a lot of like emerging markets in this category that Apple, I think, is showing growth in. I don't know if it's how much of it is from core Europe and how much of it is in Middle East and India, but they're all rolled in here. And then you can see China, not a growth story. Which these are the charts that make Tim Cook cry.
Poor
Sorry,
Tim. How many more people
is-
can he send to
This is
China?
the down 11 year over year in China. They had a really nice blow up there, but it's been a whole lot of down in China. And I think, it's a tough market. It's a tough market for Apple. They're playing there. They make a lot of money in China. Don't get me wrong. Plus they manufacture the products there, but they make a lot of money. They're a very successful company in the Chinese market, but I'm not sure how much growth is there for them right now.
No.
Those are
Charts.
them. Those are me.
Yeah,
Those are me charts, Dan.
I'll pull out a couple points. I took my notes here of stuff they talked about. This is a fun note that I noted. They mentioned when they were talking about in the enterprise, using Macs in the enterprise, I think especially, they mentioned a company in India called Zomato, which does food delivery. And I thought to myself, Zomato. When I was in India, we ordered using Zomato a lot, and I still had an account there for a long time and kept getting emails from them years after we left India.
Would you like
But
to
I
order
feel
something in Mumbai? And you're like, no.
I'd like to order something in Mumbai. No, I'm good. Also, Cisco Meetings doing their thing for the Vision Pro, I guess, with like they talk that up.
Virtual.
Gotta love. Tim Cook's in his Cisco Meetings on his Vision Pro probably.
Yeah. Did you notice that Tim's personal testimonial to Apple Intelligence was, I get so many emails, and those summaries are.
Yeah.
So Tim's not reading your emails anymore,
No.
people. The
Sorry.
emails that
he's
get
probably
passed
not
to him,
writing those. He's not writing those responses either.
Yeah, they're curated by his staff, and then he's not even reading them. He's just reading the Apple Intelligence summary of them.
And then
But
he's
that
using
was
writing
his
tools to generate his responses.
That was his little insight there, which I thought was funny.
They asked him about DeepSeek, which I thought was funny. Innovation that drives efficiency is a good thing, says Tim, really staking out some controversial ground there.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a new thing that I'm not surprised that Tim kind of doesn't want to talk about it and boast about it and all that. But I think generally everybody who's been watching the DeepSeek stuff thinks that it's really good for Apple because Apple's whole thing is not about making huge investments in training models and having models that run in smaller smaller computing environments like on phones and Macs
Yeah, right.
that's sort of Apple's strategy. I think what it may mean in the long run is if there's a tendency to have these models be more efficient, they're capable of being more efficient, it means that that's less investment Apple has to make in private cloud compute.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. It is good for them for sure.
Yeah.
They also asked, the same analyst asked about form factor innovation in the smartphones. To
Yeah,
which
that was
Tim
a nice
said,
try.
"I think
Hey,
there's a lot more to come."
yeah, that was a good answer. That was a good Tim
Yeah,
Cook answer
I
where they're
agree.
like,
I agree.
Tim have we reached the end of the road for the smartphone? And Tim was like, absolutely not. He did the usual, we're excited about our pipeline is the best pipeline ever, all of that
Yeah.
stuff. But like, I think that's him sending a message that the CEO of Apple feels like there's way more innovation. I mean, you can take it or leave it if you want to believe him, but like that felt more hypey and positive than he had to be. If that
Yeah, I
makes
agree.
sense.
There was a little something behind it. It felt like you
Mhm.
could. It seems some enthusiasm. We already talked about
Whereas
the
there was
Apple.
also the sort of like, hey, your iPad was really thin. Do you think people like thin products? Wink, wink. And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Whatever.
I'm just eating a foldable taco over here. Do you think
Hmm.
people like
How
foldable
about wheat
things like
wheat thins?
tacos?
Wheat
Wheat
thins. Do you enjoy
thins.
wheat thins? Yeah.
And then, of course, somebody asked him about the new administration, to which
I could have
he
predicted
said,
this. In fact, I did sort of predict this, which is literally
monitoring the
no answer.
situation. Yeah,
Yeah.
monitoring the situation, which
That is
means
how they did it
nothing.
back in the first Trump administration. That's how they've done it when they've been asked about the EU regulations, which is we're not going to talk about it because
Yeah,
why would you? I mean,
there's nothing to gain there.
you would
There's nothing
never.
for them to get.
No, you're not going to talk about something involving the administration with financial analysts. That's not going to happen.
No.
It's not going to
Yeah.
happen.
I think those were the biggest ones I sort of grabbed out. There were a couple interesting other questions about like the Mac growth. I felt like a lot of non-answers though.
A lot of
Like,
non-answers.
yeah, they asked Kevin about price sensitivity, and he's like, I don't know, Luca did a great job on that. I'm not going to mess with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that was a
Uh,
punt too, where he's just like,
yep.
look,
And then
it's great.
they definitely spent some time trying to carve up some of the like iPhone numbers a little better. I noticed they said it was an all-time record for upgraders, an all-time high for the installed base. And then they kept talking about the 16 outperformed the 15. Like I think it was like if you added September or something.
Well,
It was
they said that last quarter too. They say
okay.
sequentially, if you look
Yeah.
at the 15 versus the 16 is performing better than the 15 did.
Yeah. Even though the numbers are
Even though the numbers are down.
basically flat.
Basically flat. Yes, thank you.
Basically flat.
Did I say down? So yeah, Dan, I'm feeling basically flat today. You should say what's wrong is what
Yeah.
you have to say. That's
You don't
that's
say
just a
that
little
sounds great. Good for
turns
you.
out it's just at Apple. That's how we say it. We don't say down. Don't use that word down.
Yeah.
Are you basically flat to party? They say on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And then you have to say yes. The Samik Chatterjee from JP Morgan asked about the purposes of building a supply chain in India. And Tim did give a good, clear answer there, which is essentially what he said was economies of scale. He said, if we're going to build a factory, we need to make a lot of stuff with the factory. So we're going to build them for India and other markets because we have to, which is I thought a very good politics kind of response to say China, look, we're just doing this. We have to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry, there's a small child.
A small child has appeared.
A small
in Dan's
child
room.
came in to say good night.
Yeah.
Good night, small child.
Yep. It's good. I love it. I love it. I could see your
Yeah,
facial
I have to look.
expressions. It's
He's
amazing.
over there.
Well, look. That's it. Anything
That's
else?
it.
Any other final thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, I guess we'll see where we are in 3 months. But
Sure,
you
as
know,
we
they
always
made
do.
a good quarter for themselves.
Like
You know,
to
may
see
not
those
be
Mac
exciting,
numbers.
but yeah,
And
there
look,
it is.
here's my parting thought will be when everybody started talking about Apple Intelligence as a way to sell iPhones, I feel like everybody knew that because of the rate of the rollout that it wasn't going to be a thing that sold iPhones on day one, because this is going to take realistically, not only are they still not rolling out all the features of the June announcement, but we all know that there will be more announcements in June that will roll out over the coming year because they are behind and they are trying to catch up, and they're doing it at they're working hard at it. They're throwing stuff out there, but it's going to take time. And as a result, Apple Intelligence was not going to create a massive upgrade cycle, at least not at first, right? And the potential is there if there are things that are impressive about Apple Intelligence that are going to drive people to upgrade. It is the one category where you'll see it because so few iPhones can run Apple Intelligence that aren't new.
Yeah.
So, if there becomes a killer feature, even though Tim says they're all killer, that'll do it. But it's just like the evidence isn't there that that's driving it now. But what I would say is we're not surprised. That's how it was going to play when they made their announcements in June. It was very clear this was going to be a multi-year process.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to put it. Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. I'm kind of, like with all these businesses, it's kind of interesting to see their process over time. I'm very interested in the wearable stuff, the wearables home category, because as we said, I think there's the biggest room for improvement there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of stuff that's rumored to be happening in that category over the next year or two. And prior to Apple Intelligence, that was kind of where Apple put all its attention, right? We don't have to look back that far. It was only 2 WWDCs ago when the Apple Vision Pro came out, and everybody thought this is going to be the thing that everybody's talking about. And the answer is, not yet.
Yeah, so David Schaub said, I suppose no mention of the Apple Vision Pro at all. And there was.
They mentioned it.
It was the Cisco in the enterprise context, which is funny because Cisco was Deep Space Nine. But anyway. And John M. Chu, the world's most high-profile fan of the Vision Pro, talking about how he's working on the second part of Wicked, visualizing up a storm with his Vision Pro. He posted a thing where he had like 10 Vision Pro boxes all in a row because they're using it for their post-production and stuff because he loves it. And like, great, good for him.
John M. Chu owns fully 50% of the world's Vision Pro.
Vision Pro supply. Yeah, he's cornering the market on Vision Pros. So those were the mentions there. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, including small children everywhere who might intrude.
They like numbers, Jason. They want to know about money and numbers.
They want to know. They love the pretty colors on the charts, let's be honest. Anyway, if you would like more about this, visit our website, sixcolors.com. We appreciate you tuning in for this. And but check out sixcolors.com for more analysis, information, pretty charts, transcripts, and the like. Until the next time, Dan, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.